Good morning. We'll go ahead and start the regular session of the Board of Supervisors meeting for February 25th. Ms. Showalter, roll, please.
Kurtenbach.
Here.
Leyland.
Here.
Schwartz.
Here.
Brandt.
Here.
Hall.
Here. Item 1, agenda received as proposed or amended.
So moved.
Second. The motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Item 2, public comment for any item that is not on today's agenda.
Did we did pledge of allegiance?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or we changed?
good looking out.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and do the moment. We'll take a moment of
Take a
silence.
moment, yeah.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm being a little too efficient, but. Public comments, anybody in the room or online? It's for items not on today's agenda. All right, we'll go to item 3, a presentation of the Washburn sanitation system. Then online.
Yep.
Good morning, Board. Ben Delagardelle, Urban Services, updating you for the Washburn sanitary sewer system. We had a successful discharge in December. I did this a little bit later in season than typical. We can start in October, but because of a project this spring, I needed to allow the shortest amount of time from that discharge to the project. This will lower the amount of water that's in Lagoon Pond 1, which is our raw influence lagoon cell. The samples were all within the limit parameters, so a successful operation happening there. One thing that we track is our service calls, which is probably the largest fluctuation in cost for budgeting. And the last 6 months have looked pretty good. As some of you remember, we try to average, as low as possible, but the number 3 comes to mind per month. That would allow us 36 per year. And in the last 6 months, we've only had 4. So we're averaging less than 1 per month. Now, this successful time can, be a little bit of a roller coaster. So remember that if we do have months where the number might be higher, but things are looking good. This changes as we have different usages by users. And then we have changed some of our pump rebuild methods. So these service calls are related to pump outages and red light alarms that are in town. And the more frequent we're there, the budget gets a little scrunched. So we are happy with the numbers that we're seeing, and we'll continue to track those. As far as locate requests go, in the last 6 months, we have had 18, and that's averaging around that 3 as well. So coming into a busier season here, though, so the next 6 months we'll likely see more than that per month. But we are progressing with the pump panel upgrade installation project. We can't work yet with the ground being frozen, but as soon as it thaws, we're going to get out there and start completing more of these. We're about a third of the way through the project and expect heavy operations here in the next few months. As far as the other 2 projects happening, I have been in contact with those contractors, and I can update you on their progress whenever they get started. They are also waiting for weather to improve, and obviously this week is our first good week, but we'll need that to continue on through March. So that's basically all I have for information for you, unless you have questions.
A couple of questions. Ben, I'm new to the board, so I got a couple of questions on the system out there in Washburn. One
Yes,
is,
sir.
has the line's been scoped in the last 5 years?
The lines? No, they haven't been. This system is a pressure collection system, so We can do that, but we trust the scouring from the pump pressure to clean the lines. Now it can still be a problem, but the citizens own their gravity sewer drains to the pump station, and then I have a map, and it starts about 1.5 inch pipe at the very ends, and then obviously as more contributing pumps add to that, those pumps scour, the pressure just scours the pipe, and we've really, knock on wood, never really dealt with any blockages of that system, but it is something that we could do.
Is there a recommendation about every 10 years or something? And do you know if
That
lakes have ever been scoped in the past?
they have not. So my dad began working in this system in 1999 when it was installed, and he did the inspections for the installation and was kind of around for that process. He managed until 2016, as I was his employee since 2004. So being that we've been around, we haven't done that, but being that it's a pressurized system, it's more like a water supply type system where, there's an open faucet at the lagoon and it just spills out there. So we would have to shut down an entire city, more than just a city block, usually 3 to 4 city blocks to do that. And that's not that it wouldn't pay off in the end, but this type of system is not a typical, like in Waterloo, you've got gravity drains to a larger lift station. These are lift stations in front of every other house. So as an industry standard, I don't think there's really a recommendation for that on a pressurized grinder pump system. Everything gets ground up, and you could have some buildup of grease. And we've kind of talked about that before with inspections. And like I said, we just haven't really ran into issues with it and needing to do that. But if it's something that you want me to look into, I certainly can, as far as what's recommended.
At this point, no, I just want to get an idea of what's going on.
Yeah. There is like I said, there's a scouring metric that's used as far as the water moving inside the pipes to do any kind of flushing for us. And there are flushing valves there. There's ways for us to get inside the pipes, but typically in a gravity system, the pipe isn't going to be completely full. So you do scope that, you look for cracks, you look for breaks. In this system, if we did have a break, that would be coming to the surface more like a water main break. So the only infiltration we're getting is from the house to the pump station itself, and then maybe at that connection where their pipe goes into the structure. But there really isn't too much of a benefit, I don't think. But like I said, I'm willing to look into anything that's requested. So,
Thank you, Ben.
It's a good report, Ben. I was going to say thanks for making the presentation, but are we going to kind of get back on a schedule of like every couple months or quarterly?
Yeah, definitely. Especially with the projects that are going on, I plan to be here for sure every month. So, if not in person, just like this, hopefully this is okay. I didn't really have any slideshows or anything that I could show to do this, but I do plan on having some more educational things for the board, like I've done in the past, as far as the locate request, the presentation and whatnot. So
Great, thanks.
yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Item 4, claims and payments. This is a resolution of the Board of Supervisors approves expenditures that the county auditor be authorized and directed to issue payments against the various such claims as allowed.
So moved.
Second.
Good morning, board. Our total bill payment today is $532,451.31. The 60/40 fund, we are paying $6,014.83. And most of these are routine payments. We are making the payment on the courthouse construction project for ARPA and also the VA. One The courthouse is $71,989.41, and VA is $63,320.41. Other, not too much else significant. A payment to Advanced Environmental, again on the courthouse, $25,103. That is for asbestos remediation. And that's really all the larger significant payments today.
So it's a little higher than normal on that 60/40. What's the?
There are 2 weeks of courthouse security in there.
Okay.
Those are 2,600 and 2747, so that's what that's for. Everything appears to be in order. Any other questions today?
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Grant.
Yes.
Kurttenbach.
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Item 5, receive project updates from department heads.
Good morning, Board. Kathy. Our secondary roads crews will be out busy this week cutting brush. We've got a lot of brush piles collected around the county, a few spots around the county in the fall. And right now is a really good time to start burning some of that. We're also working on cutting down a few large trees throughout the county, working with the Mid-America to move a power line this morning, I think, so we can take care of one tree in particular. Later this week, we'll be meeting internally to start working on our plan. If any of you have any comments about that or interested in that, you are welcome to join us. As you know, we have to submit a 5-year plan to you, and then we have to get it, once we have your approval, that has to be submitted to the DOT by April 15th. So we're working on that in the next few weeks. Can I answer any questions? Thank you.
Anyone else online? Very good. Item 6, minutes approved for the February 18th meeting.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion carries. Item 7, the hearing, 9:05, hearing and bid opening for proposed purchase of steel for Hall Road Bridge. Item 8, consent agenda. This is a resolution.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Kurttenbach.
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Item 9A, resolution of the memorandum of understanding between Blackhawk County and Iowa Department of Management to provide CrowdStrike EDR software and 24/7 security operations center services to the county. Be approved and direct the chair to sign. Same as recommended by Al Ewell.
So moved.
Second.
Morning, Board. Al, IT Director. This is just a 1-year renewal for the existing service that we have. It doesn't change anything. It's the exact same service we have, and the cost will still be $0. Any questions I can answer for you guys?
And the cost is $0 for how long?
Just for this year.
Yeah.
Yep. It's CrowdStrike was funded through ARPA through the state, so that's dried up. So we'll see what they may offer us next year.
All right, this is a resolution. Roll call, please.
Grant.
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes.
Kurttenbach.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Resolution of the pre-construction agreement between Blackhawk County and the city of Raymond for project LFM 503-7X07 for HMA resurfacing on Raymond Road with an estimated reimbursement of $220,000 be approved and direct the chair to sign for same as recommended by Catherine Nicholas.
So moved.
Second.
These 2 agreements are for the same project. We'll be doing a project on Raymond Road, resurfacing it from Dubuque Road down to the Gilbertville city limits in next year in 2026. You know, we've been working with both cities. Ends of the project, we have a split jurisdiction portion at the north end and the south end. So we've been working with them. This first agreement is with Raymond. It is a larger portion. We have a longer split jurisdiction portion with them, and we would like to resurface their only portion. And they have a group that it's in pretty bad shape, so this will be a very nice improvement this summer. And their board, or excuse me, their city council has already signed it, approved it.
This is a roll call, please, Michelle.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Item 9C, resolution of the precaution, pre-construction agreement between Blackhawk County and the city of Gilbertville for project LFM 5031 at 7X07 for HMA resurfacing on Raymond Road with an estimated reimbursement of $10,000 to be approved and direct the chair to sign for same as recommended by County.
So moved.
Second.
This is the much shorter portion just in front of the new Gilbertville Fire Department. So about 800 feet. So therefore their portion is only $10,000. And their city council has also already approved the agreement.
Roll call, please, Michelle.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Item 10A, motion to accept and place on file a petition from the Blackhawk County Conservation Board requesting the issuance of general obligation bonds to complete the listed conservation capital projects for FY25 and FY26.
So moved.
Second. Michelle, were you going to comment on this at all?
Yes, I can. We're getting ready to do a bond issue this spring, and one of the steps that our attorneys are advising us we need to do, it's in the code that the Conservation Board has to request that the county issue bonds for their projects. So this is just kind of a housekeeping item to have that happen.
I was at your meeting, Conservation Board meeting, that was approved, so there was discussion on
It's just kind of the formality that we have to do, I believe, isn't it, for their projects?
Right, and you can still reduce that if you choose. You could not increase it above what the total amount that they requested.
Do we not do it? You could still choose to not do it as well?
Yes, you could choose to reduce it to zero if you chose, yes.
We are, just a little
Yeah,
bit.
no, you absolutely could.
All right, this is a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 10B, a motion that the travel request submitted by Amanda Fesenmeyer, Human Resources Director, be approved and direct the chair to sign for same. This is $783.40 for Anna Knapp, HR generalist, to attend the Iowa Employment Conference in Altoona, Iowa, scheduled for April 2nd and 3rd.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion carries. Item 10C, resolution to approve subdivision plat submitted by Josh and Haley Sprague to minor plat 2.7 acres in order to construct a new single-family home located east of 11011 South Canfield Road into one developable lot zoned AR agricultural residential district pursuant to section 354.8 Code of Iowa. The property in question is located approximately part of the northwest quarter of section 20. If approved, the county auditor will be directed to certify a copy of this resolution for Blackhawk County Recorder.
So moved. Second.
Were you going to comment about it at all? Any comments amongst anybody has questions?
All right, this is a resolution.
Leyland,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Resolution to approve, this is item D, a resolution to approve the subdivision plat submitted by Jerry Gallmeyer. It's a minor plat, 1.5 acres, in order to construct a new single-family home located south of 2425 Crane Creek Road into one developable lot zoned AR agricultural residential district pursuant to section 354.8 Code of Iowa. The property in question is located approximately part of the east half of the southeast quarter of section 10. If approved, the county auditor be directed to certify a copy of this resolution for the
Second.
This is a resolution. Commissioner Wilson, please.
Grant.
Yes.
Kurttenbach.
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. Item E, a motion to direct the county auditor to advertise for public hearing to be held at 9:05 a.m. on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, in Board Room 201 at Blackhawk County Courthouse, 316 East 5th Street, Waterloo, Iowa, on the proposed ordinance number 77-291, a request submitted by Eric Johnson on behalf of ALM Properties LLC to rezone .75 acres from A Agriculture District to CM Commercial Manufacturing District to be consistent with the land located south of 5708 West Cedar Watson Road.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item F, motion to direct the county auditor to advertise a public hearing to be held at 9:07 a.m. on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, in boardroom 201 at the Blackhawk County Courthouse, 316 East 5th Street, Waterloo, Iowa, on the proposed ordinance number 77-292 from a request submitted by Jeff Hutton on behalf of Philip Toma to rezone 2 acres from A Agriculture District to AR Agricultural Residential District to build a new single-family home located north of 366334 I.
So moved.
Second.
This is a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item D, 9:05. 2, hearing bid opens for proposed purchase of steel for Hawk Road Bridge.
Motion to start.
Motion to receive and place on file for proof of publication.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion carries. We have a motion to close the hearing after oral and written comments are received.
So,
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
any other comments?
No, no right.
I have a quick question, Kathy. Do you have an idea of how much the steel is domestic and how much is imported as far as purchasing?
I'm gonna defer that.
So most of our projects that I know of for our bridge crew have been US Steel. Don't recall a time in the past it has not been, but I haven't looked through all of the records. I know the last project we just got some materials for here on Mount Vernon Road is US Steel.
Okay.
So I know some vendors primarily carry US Steel, just for availability, but then also with a lot of our federal aid contracts that do require the Buy America requirements, it's just easier for them to stock a lot of the US steel, so.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. It's to be received, open and read at 3 o'clock Monday, February 8th.
So moved.
Bids were received by, received 1 bid. The only bid comes from Odin Enterprises Incorporated, Wahoo, Nebraska. Their bid is $50,988.76, 50,988.76. And our engineer's estimate was $58,650.
Thank you. We have a motion that the Board of Supervisors review and place on file bids to allow time to review said bids as recommended by Catherine Nicholas.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 11, work session. This is discussion and possible board action, consideration of all aspects of the FY26 Blackhawk County budget.
Al, do you want to flip your switch? All right, I thought maybe we would begin with the schedule reminder. I was I have been asking for all your decisions by the end of this week because we have to upload our property tax askings by next Wednesday. And that, if we do not have them uploaded by 4 PM on Wednesday, we get the taxes that we certified last year, which I think we all know is probably not what we would like to have happen. So we didn't take any action on additional work sessions last week. We had talked about potentially having them last Thursday and again this Thursday. But we do need to figure that out to meet our March 5th deadline. So in continuing the conversation we were having last week about budget, as you know, we have a limit on what our general basic levy is allowed to be under state code. And our proposed net expenses, revenue minus expenses, currently exceeds that. Last week, we started out at the 407 that's on here. And then we've added a couple things. We wanted to provide Cattle Congress dollars, so I added 25,000 for that. And then I've also added now the proposal from February 11th for the elected officials' pay and the elected officials and their deputies. So that current recommendation is to increase the amount. What was already built into the budget, because back when we were going through each department and doing each department have the better information, we used 3%, which was the same that we have incorporated into the budget for our non-bargaining for across the board. The recommendation that we have now increased that to 10% for all elected officials except one. And so that total cost is this 150, it's 153,000, have it broken out onto 2 rows on here because a piece of it is paid from the general supplemental levy. So we don't pay for salaries and benefits out of the general basic levy. We pay the IPERS and FICA out of the general supplemental levy. So there's a piece that you see going over to the second set of columns there of about 30,000 total. So when you're raising those elected officials' salaries by the total of 153, 122 of it is proposed to be paid from the general basic levy, about 30,000 from the general supplemental. Then we also talked about changing how the percentage of the rural deputies, the sheriff's deputies, to the rural fund. So our patrol deputies spend a great deal of their time actually out in the rural parts of the county patrolling. And I don't know for how many years we had been coding their time 75% to the general fund. They do spend some time working in the jail and working in city limits. So that's why we were keeping that part in the general basic levy and only allocating a portion to the rural levy. Last year, you did elect to increase the portion charged to the rural levy to 80%. The original draft of this year's budget set it back to 75, as I was kind of hoping we could do that, but it creates another problem for us if we do in the general fund. So I have now put the next rows 4 and 5 on here, move 5% of the sheriff's deputies from the general basic levy to the rural levy. And again, part of that was in the general supplemental levy, 39,964. Since I'm going to pay the deputies out of rural, I'm moving that portion to rural as well. So that does begin to reduce our funding gap under the general basic levy. We had talked about trying to find adjustments in the board budgets. So I am proposing that we could reduce our professional fees by $10,000. I believe that's budgeted at 40,500. That would bring it down to 30,000. And I'm also it was asked about reducing publishing fees. So I have reduced that by 10 and hopefully we will be able to make that budget work. It was also asked about the insurance deductible funding. I originally did include that in the budget under the general supplemental levy. We chose not to fund that for fiscal 25, or at least to wait and see how the year looked before doing that. Because of all the things that are going on in the insurance industry right now, I'm concerned about doing that. We obviously haven't gone out for renewal yet. I don't know. I'm concerned that deductible limits will rise. For those of you with home insurance, I know we got, you just get a letter in the mail that they're changing how your deductible works. It's not even a choice that you have. They just tell you. So I just don't know if a similar thing might happen to us. So I did do it in 2 layers. The total that I budgeted for was 125,000. My first suggestion was, okay, we could reduce it by 50. I'd still have 75 to help that, or you can choose to completely remove it. So that's those 2 rows. Those changes do not affect the general basic levy, so they don't really help that gap. It does, however, reduce total tax askings to our taxpayers. So that is what rows 8 and 9 do. We had also talked earlier, there was a suggestion to reduce some insurance. So I have reduced the work comp by 5,000 and also unemployment by 5,000. Again, neither of those changes affect the general basic levy. They're in the general supplemental bucket, so they would reduce overall property taxes. Then last week, Sheriff Neff offered some suggestions that he could change in reducing his training, some minor equipment, wearing apparel, things like that. So that added up to $40,000. And he did suggest just completely cutting those from his budget. So that does reduce our gap under the general basic levy.
So to be clear, he wasn't really reducing any services or any of the equipment and that was an hope that he could.
He did think he could find ways to provide the same service.
Yeah.
It will never, 18 months from now, who knows? But he did feel like he could probably do that. So hopefully that is the case. The next line we're still working on. We talked about, it was suggested that we charge a portion of vehicle maintenance to the rural fund, and we're gathering that information and we'll get back to you with an amount for that. Then facilities maintenance last week, Rory also suggested some reductions from his budget. So I have reduced those here for 65,000. I don't believe those will impact. We do receive some reimbursement. Oh, and I do want to address this. So a couple things. We do receive some funding through the state, I'm going to say through the state, for housing, Health and Human Services Department in Pinecrest. That reimbursement is actually a federal reimbursement. There is a federal grant that the state has. So we are allowed to claim a portion of that. I don't think any of this will reduce that revenue, but I do want to put that out there. As we reduce expenses doing that, there might be a revenue impact to that as well. We did also discover this week that for the courts administration area, the state does not reimburse us anything for that. We do bill the other counties in our district a small amount, and we're still looking into that. I think if we want to make a change to that, we probably need to do it as part of the 27 budget, because all those other 11 counties are in the process that we're in with setting their 26 budgets. But we'll continue to work on that. The libraries, and I did send out some information last week about this. What I have put into the adjustments right now is to increase it. This would increase our per capita to the state average. It's an additional contribution this year of $6,617 to do that. And if you'd like to, we can look at the other worksheets.
I thought they were interesting, some of the comps that you did.
Yeah, it was an interesting research project to see where we fall in the state and the larger counties. There are actually some other counties that contribute more, and I don't know their specific situation. I don't know, if there's fewer libraries in the county or how that works. Yeah. I do have some open items on here that are still on the list, the community funding, the courthouse security, and the fine collections. I did propose to reduce the general fund transfer to the roads, to reduce it to the fiscal 25 budgeted level. Again, you can choose to either do that or not do that. And then there was a little bit of equipment in the sheriff's budget that I'm moving. It will either be paid this way. We'd either pay it from fund balance, or if it was eligible for bonding, we could pay it from that. I think there's only one item that could move to bonding. So we have changes in there now of 171,000. We still have 236,000 to get under the levy cap. And as you remember, we've already kind of artificially reduced our department costs by $1 million, saying that we assume we'll have vacant positions or other things happening. So this would increase that to 1.2 million. At the same time, we have increased we've reduced the general supplemental levy a couple cents here, about 2.5, almost 3. The rural levy, we have increased about a penny, a little more than a penny. The debt service, I have not proposed any changes to it this time.
I had jotted down an additional 25,000 of revenue from public health. Is that is that?
I have not incorporated that. I was kind of hoping we would hear some more from coming through the state. I'm personally am concerned about the federal level, and I mean, I guess we can increase that revenue, but I am very concerned that they may not see that 900,000 again next year with what's going on at the federal level, because a lot of what they get from the state is dependent on state getting funding, but we could certainly add.
I mean, at some point we have to just have faith, even if we don't have faith. But we have to put a number on the budget.
We do, and at this point, I mean, early on, they did do that. That's how their budget was. They do have a grant they have found something more about since then, so we could add the 25.
So if we go forward with not putting any dollars in there, if we do get the dollars, then that just reduces that 236
It takes our
down.
236 gap, take it to.
In actual performance, and it, when you switch from budgeting to actual, then it just depends on everything else that happens throughout the year. Obviously, if it truly ends up being additional revenue, but was in their base, then yes, it would reduce, whatever, as long as they get every other dollar that they're proposing to get.
Would there still be room in the rural levy to put more, even increase the percentage back for the deputies? It was a relatively recent change, I think a year or two before you were with us that we did that. So it's
We could look into that. We could look into it. I don't want to say anything else at this point. I mean, I do think the deputies do work not only in the rural parts of the county. That's the reason they didn't bump it up more. We do have a little room under that rural levy this year. But if we, once we push that to the max, then it becomes more of an issue.
Ideally, you want to keep a little bit of buffer there, don't you?
I'd prefer to, but, you know, again, that's your choice, so not have to.
I guess
I do think we have to be defensible, I guess what I would say. We would have to have the sheriff be able to be defensible about whatever he's charging to rural.
my thinking on it is, I've said this before, is, you know, the city residents pay 100% of the different city police forces within the county, but rural residents certainly have need for them when they are in the city for various occasions, but there's no mechanism that they pay.
Well, they do, so they do pay their share of the countywide levy, so.
Right, yeah.
It's an extra portion, I guess, that goes to rural. But yeah, you're right,
They don't pay anything for the city police that they use.
not to the city police, no, just.
You looked at the board professional fees and mentioned breweries because he stepped forward last week, or
Correct.
have we looked at any other professional fees, reducing those? When I talked last week, it was kind of across the board.
Well,
And
I
then
I did not reach out to any departments, so if you want them to look at it, you can ask them and me and we'll look at it.
okay. Yeah. Everybody's okay with that? I'm happy. Send
Yeah,
out
I'm
an
like,
email.
to take a look at
Just
their
take a look at
professional fees,
professional
if they're pretty, if they're comfortable with it, fine, if there's some.
Line 8 and 9 on the insurance.
Yes.
So if we scrap one of those, what are we at risk of? Should something happen?
So we operate an internal, it's called an internal service fund. So we have a separate fund that we generally run our damages that are below our deductible levels through. So if a vehicle gets in an accident, for example, or the hailstorm, we had a good example this summer with the hailstorm that did quite a bit of damage to a roof at one of the buildings at Hickory Hills. If we don't hit our deductibles, then we pay our share of the expense from that fund. And some years we don't have much in there, some years we do. We do have a balance in there. We're trying to keep that, right, for large problems. So if we underfund that and, you know, let's say we have half a dozen hailstorms this year, probably won't, but, you know, or accidents, whatever happens, we would have to be using that fund balance to pay those. And so my concern is if those insurers come back the same way that some home insurers are doing and just arbitrarily raising your deductibles higher or not insuring you, you know, we have not at our renewal process time yet. But I'm just concerned about levels rising and us not having enough set aside to deal with the annual expenses that we have.
Yeah, so it would just take kind of one catastrophe, deplete that fund.
Well, depends on what it is.
Right.
Yeah, it would have to be catastrophic, I think. The county in the past has done a nice job of setting aside that money. I just don't want to drain it for small things. So.
Yeah, I think we have to have something there.
I mean, in the interest of not overtaxing folks, and when we do have housing standards, it is an opportunity. We set the budget this year. If there is a change in insurance, if there is a change in that fund, and we have to come back. We're not setting a budget for the next decade, right? We're setting it for the year. So I think that and that's a little bit of where I'm at, you know, 236, 211, wherever we're at in the shortfall. I don't want to cut services. I don't want to cut what we do. One, when we have rolled over dollars every year. If we can't necessarily identify exactly where those are in the right size of the budget on the front end, I don't want to cut those services now and then still roll those dollars over at the end of when we complete this fiscal year. So I think that we've got reserves, we've got protections here. If we were to not reduce those, it wouldn't necessarily, we would be taxing folks if we don't use it then they're just paying it to go back into reserves, which I understand that each levy has a different fund balance. But I guess I'm interested to actually hear what the general supplemental levy fund balance is. Or sorry, what this insurance deductible.
I think the insurance fund is about 1.5 million, if I remember correctly.
Right, so then do we run the risk of just increasing that for the sake of increasing it? We're taxing folks for the sake of taxing them so that we don't have some discomfort in our years. But to me, I'd rather not tax where we can. And then if changes, if those rates come back higher, or if those deductibles are different, or if we have more claims, then we have an opportunity to get back to reality.
Hear what you're saying, James, but I also know the reality of what's going on with the wildfires and insurance rates. I understand the concern, but I'm thinking if you're gonna do something, maybe reduce it to half. I don't think we need to take a year not to put anything in it.
Kind of, I think it's a roll of the dice. And with repair costs and everything, the way they are now, only going to get more expensive. I think it's, I like where Michelle's at with that. I'd rather be safe than sorry. And looking at $50,000 or $75,000 spread across the county equates to probably pennies, I would imagine, per household.
Michelle, so item 8 is a reduction. So what's still going in?
The total's 125, so line 8 reduces that to 75, line 9 reduces it to 0.
Got it.
How did we come out last year? We did that 125. Then
We did do that. I think it netted to about 0. We are receiving, that fund is earning interest. It's another concern. I'm assuming that again, that rate's probably gonna go down. That's why, another reason why I don't think I'll be surprised, very happily surprised if we have interest, and things all work great. I would be very happy, but those signals don't seem to be out there right now.
I would just question on the general fund transfer to roads and reducing them, that 31,000. That, I know we're trying to look at areas that don't impact services.
Correct.
That would impact road services, correct?
I honestly don't believe it would impact road services if you go back and look at their proposed budget. Otherwise, I would not have even put it on here. That preserves them at last year's level. And I'm also getting prepared to issue the bonds, so they get their new building. So I think we're maybe giving them other money that doesn't come out of the general fund that keeps them at the same spot or better spot than they are today.
Say with you, I know you, as a team player, you're always willing to look at your budget, but how does that impact you?
So we did work really hard last year to be lean, and I feel like we did submit a good budget. As you know, in the roads world, roads and bridges, we budget for a moderate winter. And fortunately, the last few winters have been a little better than moderate, so we would probably take the $32,000 out of a combination of probably our rock budget or our fuel budget or our salt budget. That would probably be how we would handle this. Yes, we do appreciate being allowed to receive the transfer and put it into our secondary road fund to save the money for a new building. Like, we're making good headway in that regards.
That's what I was thinking. You were looking at your budget specifically for whereas you could cut and things you could look at adjusting so you could put money toward the building and we wouldn't have.
Right, that's where we feel like we transferred our as much road construction to the local option sales tax fund. We've really tried to streamline some processes at the shop as well as get a better handle on our costs. Equipment, you know, we have large budget for parts. We've tried to come up with more realistic numbers over the past few years to get those to be leaner than they had been.
Well, no, you worked on this for about a month, but I was,
They did a very good job with it.
But as you know,
Happy.
we, rock and salt and fuel, it's hard to know what that will be. So you have to have some leeway in there, so.
yeah, I'd like that kind of questionable yet, just before we put that in. When we're talking about overall looking at departments and not impacting their department budgets, at least we can find another way. So professional fees, I'm happy to reach out on that, see if there's any cuts in that. We talked about being fairly conservative on our interest. From the treasurer's office, from the interest on investments. And I was wondering, and maybe it would just be helpful to us if we looked at the last 6 years or something like that, at what we budgeted and what we came in at, to see, I know this year's, who knows?
Last 6 years would be very low,
It would
Very
be,
skewed.
well, I just meant to.
but the last
If you were.
few years it's been higher,
Yeah. Well, it's been higher both the last 2 years than we thought it was gonna be.
substantially higher the last 2 years, yes.
And I know this year's kind of a, who knows what the years are gonna do as well, but I just wondered when we're starting to look for like numbers. That's something we could still throw in this scenario too, possibly.
The other question that I had, I know we've got the $1 million of the rollover dollars. As, especially across the street, but in a lot of departments, we've had folks who've retired here at the end of this year. When we factored the replacement, have we factored in that there's a lot of merit that's coming off, that there's a lot of,
Are you talking about in salaries? That,
yeah, it's
because the risk is that that million is too high.
Of course,
I mean-
it's budgeting.
I mean, that it's not, you know, that, yeah, that it's too high because as lower paid people leave, that we don't get to that million as quickly. I think as I addressed last week with retirements that happened at the sheriff's office, we believe we have taken out the people that retired and replaced them with new, which would be the lowest.
Yeah.
We did a restructuring in elections and did the same thing there. And there was one position at conservation that retired. The reason I'm only talking about those few is because they were retirements that occurred after we were already preparing all those personnel worksheets for 400 people. But we did go back into those departments because those were significant retirements and tried to right size, I guess, if you will, to budget for who we will have there.
So the class that you gave Rich and I, which I thought was, was that?
Did you pass, fail?
You never told me. I forgot there was.
It was just a conversation.
Well, I found that to be very beneficial and based on the numbers that you put together, was that 2 weeks ago? That was able to fund, as I understand it, just to clarify, all the capital requests. That was factoring in, the pay increases across the board, right?
Everything except what's reflected on that budget adjustments worksheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that equated to a very, in my opinion, a very, very minor, tax asking increase, right? If I,
There is an increase this year more than we've had the last couple of years because of trying to right size
right,
that debt service levy. So I did assume that you would fund all the capital that was eligible for bonding. I did also assume that we would fund all the equipment that would come out of fund balance. But, you know, if we continue, and that's running about $1 million a year, coincidentally, it's another million, a little bit more maybe. if we have to, so first of all, we have to save $1 million out of our operations, either get more revenue than we budgeted or don't spend what we budgeted across the board, $1 million. Then we're gonna take $1 million of our fund balance and provide our departments with the equipment they need to function. So that extra to be able to do that $1 million for equipment I was projecting will run out in about 2030. We'll be getting our fund balance down to a limit that I would not recommend you go below. And I realize people here think I'm too conservative, but there is a point where, I think if you saw the news about the city of Hudson last night, there's reasons you keep fund balance. Things happen and it's very, honestly, in my opinion, it's usually very hard to grow it. I know it feels like we grow it here a lot, and I can't really answer what happened before I worked here because I wasn't working here. But I do know we did have a pandemic that did dramatically impact workforces. And so we did have some savings here through that time of the pandemic that we probably didn't always have. And we also, couple of years before that, you sold a facility, the Country View facility, that was kind of a double benefit. We got cash into the fund balance because we no longer had the facility. We also no longer had it drawing on our operating expenses when it wasn't able to make its own revenue, its expenses. So
Be clear, they hadn't quite reached that point though.
that was before my time. Well, I have found,
Allocated money, but then.
well, they did transfer,
Reserves.
well, maybe, but there was a transfer of 2 million to them in 1 year. I don't know what it was for, but I know it happened because that's all I can see in the financials is that it happened. So that's what I'm speaking from. But those are the things that have made changes here, I guess, in the fund balance and really have made the fund balance appear to be growing a lot. Because I'm trying to budget more accurately, I guess, with personnel. And number one, I really am trying to budget the right amounts for a position. And then we put in that $1 million, I don't even know what to call it. I call it a turnover factor, lack of a better word, but I don't think that's explaining enough. We're saying, our departments are saying when we add up all their expenses and we subtract their revenues, they're saying they need 35 million to operate the general fund. And we're saying, okay, well, we're peeling $1 million off the top because we think you don't need 35. We think you only need 34 because life happens. People do leave for various reasons. You typically can't hire someone to start the day after someone leaves. So there's usually some amount of gap there. Historically, during the COVID times, that $1 million worked. Hopefully it continues to work, but we know we've heard Amanda from HR say that we have fewer vacancies now than at other times. Don't know if that'll, how long will that hold true? I don't know. And obviously we have had vacancies because of the significant retirements in December and January. So it's possible. I'm hoping that we are able to save that $1 million every year. But we don't know that. So it's just one of those things.
But that would put us down to that 45. I mean, is that kind of the ballpark that you wanted to say at that 45%?
I was kind of 40 or 45, I was suggesting, because I do think one of the things that happened not too long after I started here was the opportunity to purchase the former Raymount wrecking building came up. We already owned a building that was actually abutting it, I guess I'll say, because to me it's part of the same building, but because they're connected. But we were fortunate that we have plentiful reserves. We could take advantage of that for a small amount. So I don't really want to drive us down to that limit.
Right.
Because then if a great opportunity comes up, it'd be hard pressed to recommend that you take advantage of it.
Sure.
Or the other problem is once you get down to that minimum level, if you have a bad year and now you dip below, it is really hard to bring that back up the following year. So that's why it's always easier from a position of having money than not having it. So yeah, I agree that it's too high now. I agree that we could reduce it. But then I learned that that under the law changes that were made a couple of years ago, that we can't even, first of all, we used to have enough room under the 350 general basic levy cap that we could buy our equipment under general operating. So bonding didn't even come up. We just did it under operations or we didn't in general. Now a couple things have happened. Now we're maxing out that levy. So we've peeled all that capital out of operations, have to find some other way to do it. Found out you can't use bonding because the way the law is written today, you can't bond for it in Iowa. So the only choices we had at that point, you either put it back under the 350, which means reducing other expenses so that you can buy the equipment, or because we had this healthy fund balance, we start using that for fund, to fund the equipment. And, I think we all understand like, sheriff cars, they get a lot of miles, they need to be replaced. We all use computers, copiers. There's just, we have to replace. So that's why if we're really very fortunate, hopefully we'll keep rolling over some so that we can buy that equipment. That's really my only thoughts.
Do we have an historic breakdown of what that rollover has been every year,
I can,
years or so, both together?
well, I think I showed that. But I do
something, but
I think I've showed you a chart, but again, the pandemic really changed that. And
sure, but without crystal balls, we have to look. I mean, I understand that everything else has context, but we have to make some decision based off of
yeah,
performance. While she's looking at that,
I guess
I would
I don't have it
at
with.
some point. I remember having the conversation last year, or maybe even my first year, about this 75, the rural, the deputies charged the rural funds. And it's like every year we're saying, well, we're sort of taking a stab at what's that number? If there can be some intentionality on calculating that this year, so that we're not just doing this.
Yeah.
This jab in the dark. I mean, there are ways to figure out how many hours are spent here versus there. So that if it is 83% of the time, it's taxed appropriately. But yeah, to just keep coming back to, well, we don't know for sure. Let's figure out how we can know for sure.
And by assistant.
So that we're, and that's so that Nate can defend it. We can defend it. If those increases have, if those adjustments have to be made.
I thought last year we did increase the revenue, interest revenue 50,000. So if there's something, we could look at that.
Yeah, we can increase it something.
Increase some,
Which ones?
the interest, like the interest can be something. We did increase it 50,000 last year. We've done, I know we love this year, but I just.
Interest rates
Some of
are
those.
a percentage less this year than they were last year.
They are lower and projected, I think, to continue to go lower. So we did project it conservatively. I think there's maybe a little room to go up yet. It would seem that when we start looking at future years, that's not likely to continue. So
We might say the same thing next year, but for now.
We might. Yeah. But I think there's probably a little room to raise it now.
But that is nice to have those reserves for just this type of thing too. Like I said,
Yep.
we come up for, that's what I want, some reserves for emergencies, for situations where these things, it's a year that we don't know what's gonna happen statewide.
And that really is every year.
Yeah, but it's more so this
No,
year,
for
I
sure.
think, the feel.
For sure, but just, it's a part of budgeting, right, is that we're not gonna know.
Oh, no, budgeting.
Absolutely, right, and so, if, while we've got dollars, I'm comfortable. I don't wanna get to a point where we're cutting departments. Where we're doing cuts that aren't necessary, and then rolling dollars over. That we're not gonna feel good at the end of, at the closeout of that year, if we're doing without them.
I remember even as we looked at it this way last year and kind of tried to get it in the format of not being department cuts, there were still some departments that have their boards and different individuals have called them cuts and thought they impacted them
Yeah,
and in services somehow. So if we can, not do that and when we have to, it's different.
well, and last year, we really, I thought we stressed, and maybe we should stress more, that if there's an opportunity, if there's a need, we want to hear from department heads, that we need to hear from department heads. That, correct, correct.
We won't know how we're doing today until 16 months from now.
Yep.
Make these decisions.
Well, you'll feel the pain more than
I
that.
feel the pain for that.
Yeah, you might not see it on black and white, maybe from Michelle.
Yeah, on that rural, like I'd be fine with moving it to 80 or even a little higher. I think the reality though, as far as tracking how much time they spend is almost impossible, just coming from experience. So the way they work in the sheriff's office is you have 3, maybe 4 patrol units out at a time. You've got north side of the county, south side of the county. They handle calls as you would expect, but they're not, I would say there's not a ton of call volume, but a lot of it's proactive work. So it's just a matter of showing up. And then I think Sheriff Knapp also brought up the contract with Raymond, for example, some of the smaller towns, is how much time or how many passes they spend through the smaller towns to show a presence. Which I think would be interesting just to look at that contract or any of those contracts just to get a feel for what those specify. But outside of tracking minute by minute GPS, I don't think there's any way. I mean, you can look at call volume, but that only shows you a fraction of the picture too.
It's nice to have flexibility in there, but on the other hand, it's like you think what it is what it is as far as the service and who receives it and how often. And so to have the steady number we'd have and think that was just the number we'd agreed on for this reason. But, I don't know what it would take to determine that. That does to the taxes.
I guess is where you look at trying to get under this general basic levy cap. Is there an amount that the board's comfortable with using reserves? Right now, we've got 236,000 to still come up with.
But that's assuming we don't factor in the 25 that Caitlin identified as additional revenue. If we get that number down to 211.
Right.
And that's also if we throw in money for reserve, or not reserves, for interest and some of those too, that'll, Michelle takes a look at and we'll see about professional fees.
Professional
can
fees,
ask
there was a
and,
conversation about Pinecrest that we haven't really, Pinecrest Security, which we haven't finished that up, but that was 47 that I had jotted down from last week.
Yeah.
Board, this is Rory. Could I just make a comment about the professional services line item on there?
Yeah.
I want to reiterate that, that is really driven by the jail and the fact that we are doing an upgrade this year on the controls. And so where I don't want you to think that we just had, that money we try to do our budgets very lean, but this year, this is a temporary. So I just wanted to reiterate that that is just for the coming year. Moving forward, we'll probably be looking at bringing back a service agreement for the new system. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
One-time thing, huh?
Yes.
You don't think it's a reduction every year? Okay. No. And I'm sure most departments are probably gonna come in fairly accurate too, but like Michelle found 10,000, so if you saw it in the budget too.
Well, I don't know if I found it, but I'm doing as directed.
Well, I guess, Chris, to your question, that's where I was sort of. On past years. Call it rollover. At least a little bit. If it's been consistent at a level, that's where I'm to your question of
Right.
where is our actual target? Are we trying to get to zero, or are we gonna say that there's 200 in wiggle room here that simply not gonna be able to identify by the March 5th deadline? And we'll commit to come out of reserves if needed, in recognition that we're rolling over X amount of dollars every year.
I mean, that's what I'm comfortable with in the 200,000 range. And it sounded like we might be able to get that down a little bit more, closer to 150 or something.
I think last year we had 98, didn't we? I think that we ended up with 98,000.
Yeah, we did. It's resolved. So it's really 1.1 last year. This year, 1.2.
You know, we haven't made a final decision on elected official salaries.
No.
We could look at those a little bit more today if you wanted.
I mean, I'm happy to look at them. I'm not sure. Well, we can take a look though. I mean, just that's something to revisit. I want to come prepared to.
I'm
When
comfortable where
they're
There's a
they're
need.
in there.
to get folks up to that 90%, I think, to me, it's important to. As we've tried to, we went through the home study.
Yeah.
We've made investments, have to be level as well. So I'm comfortable there.
Did you want to see the slide or something, Chris, pull it up or then take a look again?
Yeah, I would have to take a look again.
If you want to.
If I now want to leave that for a few minutes. I don't,
I'm okay with.
I mean, I have so where I was trying to calculate the 10%. I don't know if I have a copy of the slide Amanda presented.
That's okay. Was when, it sounds like you want an additional work session this week. Whether we'll need one unless we make some decisions here today. So I think it seems like we're already on some of them.
Take a look or a stab at Thursday or.
I know I've got
Thursday
Thursday morning meetings. Friday morning is very flexible for me. I don't know how that is others.
What's our date that has to be submitted by? 4 PM?
Wednesday, just Wednesday. That's what I was hoping,
Okay.
get information tied up this week so I can just triple check things and.
On the community funding, just so I make sure I understand this right. Do we just designate or allocate X number of dollars every year generally towards community funding? Then as requests come in, then we're able to put that out?
Then there's an application process. Probably start.
Yeah.
But
for this, we just need.
yeah, we allocate 100,000 and then there's grants that are, applications that come in and we.
And we really haven't, we can give you decisions on what are the things that help you, Michelle, whatever date we need. It's those types of things, right? You want as many as.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main topics are all captured on your budget adjustment worksheet. Some of them don't have numbers beside them. I guess, so the community funding, I have put $100,000 pool in there for the community funding, plus 50,000 for the food bank separately, plus the 25 for the fair marketing that's on this sheet on row 1. And that funding, the past few years, it's just been all over the board, the amount that we've done. So it's hard to find,
For which one, community funding?
yeah.
It was always $100,000 last year. I think
No,
last two.
there was,
Last 2 years, we increased it some.
there was an 86,000 that I found one year. There, it just has really,
I think your budget was all.
Budget was 100, we just meet the budget,
oh,
yeah. It was
okay.
supposed to be, yeah, at 86,000, because remember we talked
I
about.
think Michelle's right there, that there was a year that less was allocated in the budget process, but
Than 100?
I think so.
Because I'm looking at the
I
budget.
remember there was a year, remember, we thought we should spend, it, and it had already been rolled over into the next year.
Yep.
Into the general, and so it was like, okay, well, we had funds that didn't get expended in that year that we designated.
But,
Right.
last year, if I remember correctly, we had taxed for 100,000 and used fund balance for 200,000.
250, yes. That's, I think it's actually 300, but yes.
In the interest
If-
of whittling down, to, when we get to a date, are there items 1 through 24, and some of those don't have dollar amounts called out yet, that we're comfortable to move forward on?
Right, because
Is there a
a big one that I guess I don't have a separate line is approving the non-bargaining pay increases that are in the budget at 3%. I mean, if you're ready to make that decision, that would be helpful.
And then there was the directors. They were.
Correct.
This year was different. Not that they couldn't be the same across the board, but split west.
You talk about the director pay.
Yeah.
Marketing, so,
Yes.
yeah, we put together a quick table, like about, just, because that's an average across the board that was given to you all, and I can send that to you, but about 25% of our workforce union mostly is getting like 3% or less, which is mainly conservation. They had some bigger step adjustments with the comp study, and then another 25% is getting around 3.25. And then like public health is at 3.5. So I can send you that table. Again, I recommended 3% for non-bargaining. Supervisor Kernbach said 3.5. You could split the difference if you wanted, and you're gonna be just fine. If you want to align department heads with that, I think that's okay too. Just, department heads also get merit steps of either 3, 2, or 1. And right now, I think most are either at 1% or 2%. So that helps kind of continue their path and to be competitive with the market pay. But yeah, if you wanted to align them, 3.25 would probably be okay to do that based on what others are doing for those same types of roles. And in alignment kind of with what the unions are doing.
The average of the bargaining units was 3.36.
So with the sergeants, it's 3.44, and there are some nuanced things. For example, in conservation, some are getting 2.5, but the naturalists are getting 3.5, so I didn't add that in there. So that was just a really rough estimate. I can send you the updated table. It gives you kind of the split of like, so that might be 3.44, but you still have all the civilians, civilian dispatcher, master control, detention officer, booking clerks, they're all getting 3. Majority of conservation's getting 2.5. So that makes up that 25% of our workforce that's getting 3 or lower. And then, and what's, non-bargaining isn't split up by the unions. It's kind of you might have non-bargaining staff in public health and conservation. So we just kind of aim for around what the unions are getting as opposed to trying to match it percent to percent. So, but yeah, I'll send you that updated information so that you can see the average and the split as to really what percentage of people are getting, and it's just a regular across the board increase. That would help. But I think whether you go 3.5, 3.25, or 3, if you just want to do the directors and non-bargaining, that's fine. If you want to split them up, we can do that too. But not a huge difference at this point.
So we need a time, a date Which is a new
We-
calendar, look good.
Time and date, and I'd like to, I think there's stuff on here where we can just vote today on a few of these. To just start chipping away at the list versus kicking it till Thursday, Friday, whatever that is.
I made that recommendation last week on the two of those in particular with, rural, the town trustees. Chip.
Yeah.
Let's get that off the board.
So item 20, for adjustment description 20, township trustees increase pay to $20. Included in the budget, is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you have a motion?
Motion on that? Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Hey, there we go.
Was the library still in question? What was the other one?
Yes.
What was the rate you had adopted? That, I think,
That's, I think, the 7.6% that brings you up to
that they requested.
the statewide per capita for last year or this year. I can. We love, I sent out some information. I can pull that up here. Wait a minute, Al, please.
Comfortable if someone wants to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to increase the funding for libraries, the statewide average for a total of $617 increase. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign, that motion carries. Start back up, I guess, at number one is anyone willing to make a motion on the 25,000 for Cattle Congress fair marketing?
Second.
Got a motion and a second discussion?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Mike, I think, just to make it clear, and this maybe for the future, we talked maybe trying to include them in future years, maybe at the 25,000 level or whatever. To make sure, I think that's maybe only if it's an ag-related fair that we can do it, and maybe you can remember, but I was gonna say otherwise, you check into that.
I would have to look back at the statute again, but there's very specific requirements on when we can fund fairs. It has to be agriculturally related. There's certain requirements for the amount of fairgrounds and property, but we did confirm that they met the requirements this past year when we approved funding.
Yeah.
So that's my recollection, but I'd have to pull the statute again too.
Wait till he takes a look at statute, or do I want
I mean,
to?
there's still gonna be a fair, I mean,
Yeah.
For this year, oh, for sure.
for this year, I don't think any of us.
Yeah, I don't think the statute's changed at all. I've seen no updates on it.
And I don't think they're changing what they're doing
Not that.
massively, right? They aren't gonna get rid of.
Well, they talked about having an ag portion of it, but I just not seeing how that goes forward. Okay.
At this point, we have a motion and a second on the Cattle Congress fair marketing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We'll skip 2 and 3 for now. We want to hit number 4. This is the increased portion of deputies charged to the rural fund. We want to come back, look at a couple different scenarios there.
I'm good at 80%.
Yeah.
I am
See where.
Let's see what, if there's something we can come up with, there's something different for next year.
Maybe like it.
Yeah.
So,
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to increase portion of deputies charged to the rural fund from 75 to 80%. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2. Increase funding for, sorry, reduction of board of supervisors office budget professional fees by 10,000.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second, decrease by 10,000 for professional fees from board of supervisors budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Same for budgeting, for publishing fees. Kristen. Taking that.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to reduce the line by $10,000 for supervisors publishing fees. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do we want to talk about insurance? Do we want to take that to the following meeting?
I'll make that motion.
This is for item 8 and 9. 8, this is the reduction.
Okay.
Number 8. No, sorry, number 8, reduce insurance deductible fund. So the 50,000 is the supplemental levy.
You can, you say, could you, we should wait, one
Yeah,
to wait,
wait.
but if you still want
Yeah,
to go.
I'm fine with waiting.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was looking at the sheriff stuff. I'm most concerned about the stuff.
Yeah. Right, yeah, I agree with you. The general, item 12, sheriff's office, reduced training, minor equipment, wearing apparel and safety equipment. That's a reduction of $40,000 in that budget as the sheriff had outlined and proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second there. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carries.
We go back to 10 and 11.
Sure.
Is there any other concerns with the reductions on that, with the workers' comp and the employment?
Well, my only concern with unemployment is what's going on at the federal level. If that sticks, I don't think we can make up $900,000 in the health budget. So I would be concerned that there would be employment changes that would, the way that unemployment works for government is we reimburse actual claims that are approved and paid by the state. So if, you know, I hate to even say this in a public meeting, but if that catastrophe comes to the health department, they're
We're gonna do that afterwards.
Although that $5,000 is gonna cover it,
No.
right? So,
Well, and I want to say, like, the last time we had really large, this country view, that those quarterly bills were upwards of like $80,000 that we were paying. I mean, we could go back and look to kind of gauge. Now, that was we had 700 employees with country view, an entire, nursing facility, and some retained jobs, with the new organization. But I want to say at the highest, I remember seeing some of those were upwards of $80,000. And it was, Billy, I know you were it's been, but they lasted for a while. I mean, it was like an 18-month. So, yeah, how, now would it be as much as that? I don't know, if it's with public health, they have different, if that's what you're referring to, Michelle.
it won't be like that.
Sure, but
Country view, but I don't care. Take it to zero.
But I'm just saying that is something that, we did go through a cycle like that. I did probably, so, and I don't know that,
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look, but we could look back and see how we kind of planned for that. With knowing that that was the decision at the time. So, but it did, she's right, we had to pay those claims, just, it's not like the unemployment insurance of regular businesses where you kind of just pay into an amount and then the state, it's self-funded. That's the way to put it.
Yes, I mean, I'm okay not touching age or reducing age through 12 through 11. Just because I think it just adds a little more resiliency for all the unquestionable things that we're facing right now.
Is those dollars in a separate bucket?
Yeah, that's in the general supplemental levy that doesn't face the 3.5 cap.
I'm sorry, is that a motion?
Chris.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll make that motion to not reduce those.
8 through 11.
Yes.
Correct. We've got a motion to not reduce insurance deductible funding, eliminate, to not reduce comp insurance, not reduce unemployment. We have a second on that motion.
Second.
I'm not sure.
Got a motion and a second. Got further discussion?
I just want to make sure, something here. Number 9, so eliminate the insurance deductible funding, So that would have saved 75K.
Uh-huh.
Still,
5 total.
or if we do one of the same,
So,
9.
no, so I have a total budget of 125 right now, so if you. I think Chris's motion would say leave it at 125. I know it's hard to, but if you didn't want to leave it, I just gave you choices. You could cut it by 50,000 and say you're gonna adopt line 8, or you could say you're gonna cut it by 75 and adopt line 9, or you could pick another amount entirely, whichever you're wanting to do. I was just trying to give a variety of options. And the motion that Chris has made is do.
So Chris's motion.
And
was
his
not-
Yes.
Be 135.
I'd second that.
A motion and a second to not reduce. For discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-2. All right. Well. Item. Gonna wait on 13. If we look at what we can potentially charge the rural fund on the vehicle maintenance. Item 14 is facility maintenance, professional fees and repairs. This is Rory's suggestion of, as you noted, this year only, 65,000 reduction.
So moved.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion carried. Approved number 15. Scoot down to 19. This is a general fund transfer to roads. This is a reduction in 2025 level for the amount of $31,923.
Here's one more question for Kathy on that. So like in the years that we don't use like as much salt, for example, we're building, how far out is the reserve salt we've got like on hand so that we're not, not gonna reduce this and find ourselves in a place we get hit by something and you don't have salt.
Right, I think we've taken all of the salt that we contracted for this year. Allison, if you're, but correct me. I believe we got, our salt dome should be full currently. You know, if that's right, Ryan. I believe the salt dome is currently full. We had a delivery about a month ago and it was full. So I think we should be sitting pretty good for salt at the end of April, for example. We always take the average, we get it through the DOT contract generally. We always give them a middle of the road amount of tonnage we want for the next year. And we have to take 80% of that, so we're sitting good for salt right now.
Thank you.
Or discussion or questions for Kathy on that fund transfer to roads? Motion,
So moved.
Second.
motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign.
Aye.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Motion carries. Last. Got itemized here. So is the sheriff's equipment to fund balance and bond 70,000. Can you refresh us on that one, Michelle?
The sheriff's office budgeted $20,000 for a copier in their operating, and 40,000. Well, no, I take that back, 30,000 for their bulletproof vests. And another 20 for various computer things that since they're kind of that operating, the copier I know can go to bond funds, the rest of it would have to just be used from fund balance, but that takes it out of the tax, takes it out of this hole and puts it, it'll still be in that hole, but it'd be just kind of a different category.
Sure.
This was a recommendation from Nate then.
Yeah.
Right, he meant, yeah, so he's still getting all the stuff, it's just.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Got a motion and a second, follow the sheriff's recommendation to move that equipment to fund balance and bonds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. So we've got a couple of items yet to discuss, increases for electeds. We passed the deputy charge of the rural fund. The sheriff's vehicles, through rural fund, trying to know where we're at here. Courthouse security, 60/40, room and board, attorney's fine collection, that whole item. We'll need to discuss at a future meeting. Attorney's office, we'll need to discuss at a future meeting. Court admission space charges. Later meeting. So when do we want to have that later meeting?
So can we circle back?
Yep.
The pay, are we saying that we're not even prepared to approve the 3% for the
Yeah, I think we should.
non-bargain?
I think we're okay.
Cause that's like, it's a lot of
Yes,
people.
I'll make a motion, but yeah.
For the 3% that you have already included.
Right, just for the non-bargaining group, you can separate the directors if you want to consider those electeds or something.
I'll make the motion.
Is that a 3%? Is that for non-bargaining or non-bargaining and directors?
Before I do that, Rich, you had information, you said it was 3.25.
3.36 with the information I had so far. That's, Amanda's got some other ones that came in since. So it'd be up a little bit higher than the it'd be under 3.5.
3.44, yeah. I'm looking at the slide here.
I was thinking more 3.5 for both the non-bargaining and directors. Just to stay. Yeah.
What's factored currently into?
Well,
Three.
only 3.
And they all do still have, to your point of staying competitive, they all still have merit as well, which Amanda said is between 1% and 2%. So Probably.
3, actually.
1 and 3. I think maybe 1 and 2 is sort of where most are
Yeah,
at.
well, for directors, yeah, I mean, for non-bargaining, there's probably more that are at 3% for
Okay.
the reclasses, so.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, if we really break out everything, like, I think 3.25, you're gonna be fine, honestly, like, that's where if I were to recommend a tweak to that, and then with directors, you could just do, instead of 2.5, you could just do 2.75. I think that's fine. Now it is up from what is budgeted. So there's, and I think it's about for non-bargaining, maybe 50, 60, if you include directors.
Last year it was 4% non-bargaining and 3% for directors.
Michelle, you used 3% as quotes and all this, right?
I did, and then 2.5 for the directors that, I don't know, I didn't think that was all the directors, but at least the directors, and maybe it's all of them, I can't.
For the 2.5.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it is.
with everybody.
I'm with, yeah.
Okay.
No, anybody that's on our scale, yeah.
If it was 3.25 or whatever is being flown out, what is that increase the whole in basic levy?
I don't know, that's gonna take me some time because those are that touches every single department and.
Right.
I didn't know there was that many steps on top of that. Well,
I mean, the unions have them too, it's,
Yep.
yeah, which they're pretty much in line with the unions. So some unions, you know, you're in step, you're getting a 3.5% increase, 3% increase, plus like anywhere from a 2 to a 4, step increase, so. But non-bargaining again has generally, these are management positions, typically supervisor positions that keep in the union, and typically, and therefore their wages are typically larger. So a percentage increase on a union role that's $50,000 versus bargaining that's $80,000 is a larger increase. So again, you could keep it in there exactly as we planned it at 325. If the market moves slightly, we can adjust that next year. But right, I really feel like non-bargaining is doing much better than where we've been. Same with our leader. Again, that's my goal. This year was a focus. So, yeah, and I haven't necessarily heard anybody saying that a 3% is, not that anybody would, but I think we have enough to justify 325. You could even do 3.5, but given what we know about the budget and the cap, I'd be fine to just leave it where it's at.
The 325 or the 3.5?
Probably, or the 3,
Either.
even, 2.5, 3. So,
Why don't we do the 3.25?
So we
Well,
had a
you
motion.
just had them, yeah.
Yeah, we had a motion. Just need clarity, I guess, on what that motion was.
Yeah, motion for 325.
For
Are
non-bargaining.
we non-bargaining?
But I mean, it'd be helpful to have kind of the calculations out of how this impacts the overall levy that we're trying to get under here.
Yeah, it's gonna bump that 200,000 up again.
Yeah, so I just want to have that full information before we take a vote on it.
I'd be comfortable with taking, at the next meeting, taking a vote with the scenarios. Already got 2%. What does 325? And then it's the other number that folks wanted, but I'd rather go into that with my eyes open.
Yeah, Manny, can you get us the most recent update with the new tender too? Averages.
sure, yeah, I think I'm looking at it right, yeah, it's right around 3.38 if I really do every single one. But again, some of these, yeah, I'll get you some information that can show that average, so. You're right, you're in the ballpark though, yeah. Not gonna go wrong with 3 with what's planned or
So
slightly
Reggie, am I hearing you right that you'd like to see a scenario also played out based on what that average is?
Yeah.
Okay, just so that
Just so we know.
we go to this meeting, I don't want to say, well, then now we just now get this number, now we gotta wait again, so you can connect with Michelle on what that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So there's another scenario.
That goes back to Chris's.
3 points, what?
Well, we got 3%, we've already got that. 3.25.
I understand that, yep. And then what's the other one? 3.1?
That was non-bargaining.
3.25, and then whatever that number is that Amanda's referencing, that she's got, once she adds in the extra contracts. Of what the average is.
I mean, might be like, 3.4.
Whatever that is.
Yep.
Get that to Michelle.
So the 3.25 was both non-bargaining and directors, just the non-bargaining.
I would say right now, just not bargaining, not talking about directors. Just because that's how I originally presented it.
No, yeah.
And I would take a different motion on directors.
You were saying.
So the scenarios that we want to be from, we have to be specific on what we're asking Michelle to bring to the next meeting. So. Want to see the scenario from 3 to 3.25 and 3 point whatever based on. And then for directors. 2.5 now. What other scenario do you? Any others want to see? Or we're gonna stay there then.
Yeah, I don't know the levels. I guess I need more education levels, what other advancements are and.
So all non-bargaining, it's basically like a union step.
Right.
So if you are between the minimum and the quartile, you get a merit increase of 3%. That's in addition to and across the board, just like the unions. And then if you're between second quartile and midpoint is basically what we're trying to get to market, that's a 2% increase. Anything above midpoint to the top of the range is 1%, which is the lowest step increase we have across any union and any position here. So
Do we have a lot of people at that?
I can check. We've had a lot of changes in non-bargaining, and I would say before, yeah, because our wages, we had a lot of people hiring non-bargaining at midpoint. Since we've gotten our wages more in alignment with the market, we've been really cognizant. Department heads have done a great job, elected officials, about hiring more at the first, second quartile, so they have room to kind of grow, unless you come in with, 10, 15 years of experience before we put you at market or above. So, but I can take a look and get an idea. That would have been in the budget sheet, so it's just gonna take me a minute to pull it together with Michelle. But even making decisions off that, it's like making a decision off the unions, well, who's getting stuff and who's not. At the end of the day, it's gonna be a mixture. You kind of just follow the trends as best you can, usually with our compensation data, so.
It's a balancing act. We don't want to leave anybody behind. Same token, we got to balance with budget is too, so.
Yep. Yeah, it's really more, I would say, the elected officials, if you're gonna accept the full 10%, or if you're gonna lower that. This also may come into play too. So anything, if you were to lower it to say 7%, or if you don't lower it, but if you would, that may offset some of this. But it might be helpful for us to know if you guys are pretty solid on 10% or in that 5% for the county attorney, or if there's any scenarios you want to see with elected officials too.
Yeah, I think the scenarios for elected officials, I'd like to see the scenarios of what it would be if we put the across the board scenarios that we're looking at, and then 7% as the other percentage.
So you've got 3 and then the 10 for everybody but one, and then you want 7. Is that for everybody? What about the one that was low?
Leaving the 1 at 5.
Okay.
So we can do kind of a scenario 1. I mean, this is what it is, just without making any tweaks, and then you could. Scenario 1, 325 for non-bargaining. Directors, I just say 2.75. And then we'll do 7% with that.
You can get us where that's gonna put folks percent to, I was trying to get folks to 90%. If you can, what the 7% or 3%, how that plays
Yeah,
into getting us. So
yep. Kind of that, where if the market moves and what kind of, yep. We did that a little bit with directors too, assuming the market moved, and yeah, it's tough, but again, when you're within 5%, it's fine. It's when you're beyond 5% of the market average, that makes a bigger difference, so sure.
So I'm clarifying on this, the 236 we were showing on the sheet today, that was with the 10% for all electeds, wasn't it, Michelle?
Except the one's at 5.
The ones at 5, okay.
That's what that row 3, I'm sorry, 2 and 3 do, is bring that.
Okay.
Yep.
the item that we don't have number on here, but is that 25,000 from, do we need a motion to add that into projected revenue or?
Oh, for the health
For the health
department?
department?
Yeah, I guess if you want to add, that's probably a good idea. Yep.
Question.
Motion. Okay. Motion in a second. All in favor of adding 25,000 recommendation? Public health to their budget? Who's that? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, so
The directors, we're not giving you any other alternatives, is it, do I have that right?
Yeah. What'd you have?
2.5.
7.5.
Yeah, I mean, unless I didn't do one, you want them to match to 3.25. I think that was what originally you had.
That was,
Okay.
Oh.
That's me.
Must be at our meeting limit.
So I thought, so we can do one that matches them up to kind of like
Yeah.
3.25, is that okay?
Yeah.
Or, okay, or something to that point. We'll figure it out. So, thank you.
All right. My notes got scratched up. Did we, the insurance deductible and all, did we end up settling there?
yes, we made
We did.
a change,
Not to reduce.
Not,
not reduce.
okay,
That was for items 8 through 11.
yep,
Yep.
okay. All right. Where's my,
One last thing.
Yeah.
So for the attorney's office space, were we gonna table that for?
This wasn't impacting budget.
yeah, that
Okay.
one would be a capital, so when do we want to?
Thursday better? Oh, no.
Thursday's better, but I know it's better.
Doesn't have to
Thursday
be in the morning.
afternoon.
Yeah, I could do, I could make Thursday afternoon.
I'd have to do, yeah, something. Any other?
Leave it Thursday as early as 11.
I could do 11. Did you say
Yeah.
you could or couldn't?
Oh, wait, no, I'm thinking time.
Oh, yeah. My God.
So actually, I think it was an hour ahead.
I hope we can get all the
Oh,
salaries
I'm
done by Thursday. You're asking.
Okay. Yeah, Thursday at 11 is, 10.
I can do early. I just know that it's just Thursday.
Does that work for you, Justin?
Yeah, I'm very flexible, through now, through next week. I'm just wondering, Michelle, are you gonna have enough time or do you? Like a couple.
I'm wondering that myself. I'm not sure that there's a lot.
There's
Just don't have it easily structured to separate out those, but
I'll stop bothering you.
figure it out.
That's one question.
We'll see what we can do.
Board, I assume this won't be a concern. I am not available late Thursday morning and into about the first half of the afternoon.
10:30 is good Thursday.
10:30's good. Hopefully we'll have numbers, otherwise we'll just have to wait till Tuesday on that item, but I prefer to. I know she wants it before, so. Rich, leave her alone.
Just for a day or
No
Questions for exception.
10:30, we said, okay.
All right, do we have any other items on, budget that we want to talk through?
No.
You already have to-
No.
Oh.
We'll meet on Thursday at 10:30. All right. Do you have any other reports or information?
I'll just share a little bit. So we had put the homeless near Heart Walk this past weekend for the benefiting the warming center. It's the second year for the walk and it was really nice to increase. But I thought some of my conversations catching the new thing this year is that they've seen a real big increase in the amount of women using the warming center. And they're getting the other women's shelters are for the first time where there's operating capacity. And so that's it. The start of this was always there was mostly that it was men, that there was a shortfall of emergency housing, but we're seeing that grow. It's just kind of really concerning to hear. I want to put that in everybody's radar.
How many people walked in it?
There are about 25, 30 people.
Yeah.
And really amazing broccoli cheese sitting right here. Oh, I made it.
Oh, you did. Who made that? Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, just wanted a quick update here of my past week. One of the things that's been interesting, when we get to serve in these positions with from all perspectives, experience and relationships with other elected officials. Same with me. I know several people that are supervisors in other counties, several city council members in other areas of the state, and several of them have brought some ideas to me that we can look at for cost saving items. So trying to do some research so I can bring it to you and give some ideas of what other areas I'm trying to save dollars. Last Thursday, I had my first meeting with the Regional Transportation Authority, where there was a lot of discussion identifying bridges and road conditions in our region and funding for them. Kathy and I have another meeting coming up. I think it was on the 14th for that as well, looking at some funds for the county. We're looking for road projects. Last Thursday, again, I had a meeting with Blackhawk County Emergency Management Commission. So I'm an alternate on there and did the budget and approved the process for that. It was quite evident there's quite a bit more in the emergency management side that I have to learn on that commission. But I guess the biggest thing with the transportation last week, they did a review of all the public EV charging stations in our, I think it was 7 counties. You get outside of Blackhawk or Bremer County, there's not anything listed as public EV stations. So that was kind of alarming, as many EV vehicles we have, and it's a kind of Waverly and Blackhawk County or Waterloo, Cedar Falls area, wasn't much out there. So just kind of enlightening and kind of disturbing that there was that much lack. So.
Have any other reports from the board? We have a motion to adjourn.
Um,
Second. All right. Adjourn.